Hello everyone, this is Vignesh. Welcome to my new lecture series, and I am working as an assistant professor in SNS College of Engineering. And today we are going to talk about the heat transfer, the modes of heat transfer, especially that is conduction, convection, and radiation. So understanding these concepts will help you to understand the heat transfer exactly. What is a heat transfer? So generally heat transfers from higher temperature region to lower temperature regions, as we know, but there are three modes are there in order to transfer the heat from higher temperature region to lower temperature region. So those three modes are conduction, convection, and radiation. So heat always moves, yes, as I said, heat always moves from warmer place to a cooler place. Uh, so this is an example actually. So for as I say, if you are holding uh, two different water bottles with two different temperatures, then if you mix it well, then those becomes that temperature will become an equilibrium state. So that is the main aspects actually. And so this is the three ways: so conduction, convection, and radiation. So conduction generally takes place within the solid particles, so transfer of heat by microscopic collision of particles and movement of electrons within a body. So when you heat a metal strip at one end, heat travels to the other end by means of conduction. So what it actually happens means, so this is a diagram where what actually happens means, so in solid particles, in solid actually the particles are generally in a closely arranged manner. So what happens if you heat it at one particular point, that particles in that point will start to accelerate, so it start to move faster, and it starts to vibrate. So one particle starts to vibrate, then it affects the closing particle, closed particle, and those particles will also accelerate, right? So the acceleration keeps on continues, so that's where the heat will be moved from one end to another end. So this is what the actual conduction. See, the outer electrons of metal atoms drift, and it's free to move. So when the metal is heated, this sea of electrons gain kinetic energy and transfer it throughout the metal. So insulators such as wood and plastic do not have that this sea of electrons, which is why they do not conduct the heat as like as the other materials. And convection, if you see, convection takes place through advection, diffusion, or both. So convection is the movement of groups of molecules within fluids such as liquids or gases. So in solids the heat transfer takes place, that is called conduction, and if you see in liquids, if the heat transfer takes place, then that is called a convection one. So if you heat that in a pan, if you heat the water, then what actually happens is the pan gets heated by means of conduction, and the water gets heated by means of a convection. So convection above a hot surface occurs because of hot air expands, becomes less dense, and rises. So it is the uh, actual thing, the convection current actually happen in if you take a refrigerator, so the freezer box will be at the top. Why? Because the freezer, it produces the cold air, so cold air becomes very dense, so the dense cold air will generally moves to the bottom, and the hot air generally moves to the upper, so upper side. So this is the natural convection. So the cold air comes down, the hot air goes up. So this is why the natural convection cycle happens, and the cooling inside a refrigerator gets maintained. So that's why the freezer box actually put it in the top. So if you put the freezer box in the downside, what happens, the cold air is still in the down and hot air is still in the top, so there is no natural convection cycle will happen. So that's why we put the freezer box at the top. So this is a natural convection cycle. So if you consider the Radiation part, if there is no medium, if the heat is transferred from one place to another place, that is called a radiation. So if you say an example, it will be easily understandable for you. So we get the heat from the sun, right? So there is no transferring medium. So the universe, like above, if you say the vacuum is there, right? So how do we get a heat? So by means of radiation. So radiation is the electromagnetic waves generated by the thermal motion of charged particles in matter. So all matter with a temperature greater than absolute zero emits thermal radiation. And as I say, there is no medium is required. So this is an example how we get an heat from the sun by means of radiation. So radiation travels in a straight lines. Radiation can travel through a vacuum, and it requires no particles to travel, and radiation travels at the speed of light. So this is the infrared radiation observed in humans. So those red regions are generally in above the higher temperature regions. So this is an example. And the shiny metal, so there are four different blocks are there. One is shiny metal, dull black, and shiny black. So the shiny metal container would be the warmest after 10 minutes, because its shiny surface reflects heat radiation back into the container. So the dull black container would be the coolest, because it is the best at emitting the heat radiation. So this is all about the radiation. So today we have gained a knowledge about the conduction, convection, and radiation, that is typically the modes of heat transfer. Thank you.